Deion Sanders was given a B for year one. I think that grade's a little low, and I'm going to explain why it should be an A minus.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Bourne. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for taking the time to make me your first listen of the day. Let's dive right in. On3 released a ranking of all their first-year head coaching grades. And let's just say a lot of coaches did well. Other coaches not so much. And so I would say Deion Sanders kind of was towards the top of the On3 report cards. But I'm just going to go through the report card and kind of give it a little breakdown. So Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, C+, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, C, Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati, a D, Deion Sanders, a B, Brent Key, an A at Georgia Tech, Jeff Brom at Louisville, B+, which I feel like should be an A because he made it. Zach Arnett, D-. I think if you get fired in your first year as a head coach, it's automatically an F. So not sure why there's a D- there. But Matt Rule, C+, Ryan Walter, C- at Nebraska or Purdue, Stanford's Troy Taylor, C-, Luke Fickell, C-. And so Deion Sanders, they said no first-year head coach was under a microscope like Deion Sanders. Although the goalposts constantly shifted through the season, Colorado's 4-8 record should be viewed as a successful season, which is true. Sanders brought energy, juice, and exposure. The program desperately desired. The Buffs stunned TCU, upset Nebraska, and pushed Arizona and USC to the brink. The season ended in a whimper, but Sanders has reloaded in the portal. So there have been concerning hiccups from demoting Sean Lewis to throwing the offense line under the bus and mostly ignoring the 2024 recruiting cycle. So the reason I say it's an A-, I think, one, the exposure aspect is not being valued enough. I think Deion Sanders single-handedly got Colorado into the Big 12. If Colorado is, for instance, losing, like say they hire, I don't know, say it's Carl Durrell again, like Deion Sanders is still at Jackson State for one more year, and then he was hired going into this season, and Colorado goes 3-9 under Carl Durrell. Nobody wants Colorado in the Big 12. Nobody, they're like, they haven't really done much. They're kind of a lost cause over there. They're, even though they were in the Big 12 already once before, they aren't what we're looking for at this time. Because you could say immediate success doesn't matter, or recent success, excuse me. Recency bias is a thing. It always is, always will be. Stanford, for instance, they were viewed as a Big Ten lock, but they've been down the past 4 years, and they got left out, have to go to the ACC. Stanford has produced the most NFL players in the Pac-12. They've won, I think, 3 New Year's Six bowl games in their heyday, and they had 5 Heisman finalists as well. Stanford is literally the epitome of you struggled at the wrong time. Colorado is the epitome of we got famous and important at the right time, because everyone wants Deion Sanders. Everyone wants to watch him. Everyone wants to watch his teams win, lose, whatever it may be. People are going to watch. As you can tell, as them being I think they were the third most watched team behind Bama and Georgia, excuse me. So he gets them exposure. That's way more important than people realize, because it helped him get into a new conference. Secondly, he creates a new energy around the program. Colorado was a desolate program. Colorado was one of those programs where I think when most recruits and transfers got offers from Colorado, they'd be like, okay. It just didn't have the luster it once had, and he brought that luster back. Now, where I do agree with the grade and on why he doesn't get an A for me is it's not the. Let me address the offensive line thing before I get to why the grade deserves to have a little minus next to it. And for some people are going to be like a B and A-. There's not much difference. That's someone who never was in contention for getting 4.0s and stuff. Come on now. It always makes a difference. Everyone wants the A on the report card, not the B. Even if there is a minus next to it, you don't want the B. But the offensive line, It's completely ironic to me. It's completely kind of like nitpicky. It's completely kind of like, I don't even know. It almost pathetic to criticize Deion Sanders for basically throwing the offense line under the bus. And let me explain why. All year long, the analysts, other coaches, anonymous coaches said it's not a Power 5 offensive line. They said that offense line is not good. It is not a Power 5 line. They will not compete at this level until they have a good line. And it was like, okay. And then everyone was saying he needs to replace that entire line. He needs to get rid of them all. There should not be a starter from last year's line in 2024. And so he says that. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, why would he say that? Ugh, the whore. And it's like, we all knew that was coming. They were terrible. They were the worst offensive line in the Power 5, if not all of college football. And now we're feeling bad for them because they're kids? No. No. If Coach Prime, for instance, if this was year 4 at Colorado and that was the product they had, he'd be fired. They'd be like, you didn't value the offensive line, you didn't upgrade, you didn't develop. I think the handling of the offense line, in the sense that they never really changed the offense to cater to them, to cater to their skill set until like the very end when it was already too late. I think that's where Coach Prime loses a little point with me. The way he handled addressing the offense line. I mean, if you're working a job, say you're in sales, and you are consistently selling the least amount of product, whatever it is, and you expect to have your job the next year, I hate to break it to you. That's not how life works. Your boss is going to sit you down, talk to you, and be like, we really need to get these numbers up. Your sales are down this quarter compared to so and so whose sales have tripled. So obviously there is like something to compare to. I'm sure Coach Prime had multiple, if not a talk a week with that offense line. We saw it in last week's episode of the documentary, which I didn't watch a new episode yet. I'll talk about it on tomorrow, which is Friday, because you guys said that the day after was too soon, so I'll wait another day for you. I listen to you guys, don't worry. But yeah, you don't get to just not be good at your job consistently. Like if you're underselling, or say you work at, I don't even know, data gathering establishment, and your data is wrong and it's consistently wrong. You don't get to just be wrong and come back the next year. It's the same thing with the offense line. Everybody said they needed to be replaced. I just don't think anyone was expecting Coach Prime to be like, yeah, I'm going to replace them. But we've learned that he will say what he's thinking. And I think that's what kind of makes him such an interesting person, because he's very blunt. He'll, for every like quote where it's like, oh, that's so cool that he said that, or oh, that's so cool, like he just gets it. Yeah, he's blunt. He literally will be like, yeah, I'm going to replace you guys. And he said that it was necessary. Now, where he loses, why he doesn't get an A for me. One, the offensive line needed to be changed somehow. The offensive line needed to have the offense built around it. I know it's Sean Lewis's offense, but as the head coach, you got to step in there and be like, dude, change it. I don't care what this is. Like, it shouldn't have taken that long for a change to happen. It shouldn't have required demoting your offensive coordinator. Unless Sean Lewis was literally like, yeah, I'm not doing that, then he should have been fired at that point, I guess. But unless that was the conversation, that's only between them and the man upstairs, that needed to change. There was game management issues every game, it seemed like. There was specifically the USC one, they wasted a timeout early. Then they're trying to charge down the field to, I think, tie the game up or take the lead. I forgot which one it was. I think it was take the lead. And they were running the ball. They had no timeouts left, and there was just pure confusion. The Oregon State game, there was a swing where they were up against, or their backs are against their own goal line, and they throw the ball twice, incomplete pass, run the ball for a short gain, which they knew was going to happen because they can't run the ball. And then Oregon State called a timeout, got the ball off the punt, scored a touchdown. And all of a sudden, Colorado goes into halftime down 14-0, or I think it was 14-0, 14 something, rather than 7-0. So there was that. I'm trying to think. They had a lot of illegal substitution things. I think Colorado was like the one team in college football that didn't understand the rule of if the offense subs, the defense gets to sub too. because it happened to a lot of people where other teams will just trot on like 300-pound dudes and have them run back off. But Colorado, I swear it happened like every other game where it's just like, we know if we sub on offense when there's 15 seconds, the defense gets a chance to sub. So why are we subbing? And so there's just a lot of like, I think, game management issues, a lot of clock management, a lot of just not really having an idea of what was the right move or right play at that time. And I think that's something he'll learn, but I think that's another reason that it gets docked for me. And then also just the stretch down the final stretch, that can't happen. I mean, obviously Colorado over exceeded expectations. I like to bring up their win total projection, which here was 3.5. If you bet on the over, congrats. It was a lock by the second month, I think. It was a lock by October. But you lose to Stanford, blow a 29-point lead. Arizona, you had a chance to win that game. USC had a chance to win that game. Washington State, you should have beat them, but they beat the brakes off of you because at that point the team was in shambles. Like there was just so many chances for this team to have more wins, and they didn't. They couldn't get over that hump. They had a culture issue. They had a content issue, I guess. I don't know what I would just like name it, but they were fine being popular. They weren't fine winning games and being popular. They were fine that winning games made them popular. And I think the players needed to realize that there's more to life in college football than just being popular. And so I think the A- grade is fair. I think the B grade is a little low. He brought exposure. He brought improvement. He brought new life. He brought them into a new conference. And even though people are hating on the recruiting, look at their average before you look at the quantity of players, because the quality of players that they brought in is really good. If they were able to bring in 4 or 5 more, that would have been great. But obviously, that's not the vision. Like I've been saying, if the transfer portal method doesn't work this year, maybe give it up. Maybe don't try to bring in 20 transfer portal players per year. But what you can do is try to at least recruit around what you have. It's good that some of them have extra years of eligibility, but recruiting and development will always win, because obviously, if you guys didn't know this, a blue chip ratio tells us that no champion has won a championship. No team has won a championship without having at least 52% of their roster being made up of 4 or 5-star players. Transfers are graded differently, and transfers rarely, like groups of transfers, rarely have an impact enough to win a title. Now, it doesn't mean that a transfer can't impact you, but like Joe Burrow, for instance, he wasn't in the transfer portal because it wasn't a thing back then. He just transferred, or he wasn't eligible right away, so he had to sit out. Joe Burrow is an exception. Michael Penix is an exception, and even then, history tells us Michigan's going to beat Washington. We'll have to wait and see, but it's more about recruiting and development. And so until we see more of that, I think Colorado's going to struggle at times. But Coach Prime had a great first year in the overall perspective. Win-loss record, not so much. Overall perspective, great first year. A lot of things to build off of, a lot of things to be happy about. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry about when you buy tickets to your next big event, when you buy them. It shouldn't have to be like 3 years in advance or 2 years in advance. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the best things about Gametime: they have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of events in your area, views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. So if you want to get in on the Gametime app and take out the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED ON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. I wanted to talk about, because I didn't miss it. I just had other things I wanted to talk about, and obviously it's the off season, so we're gonna have a lot of empty space and a lot of empty time to figure out what is going on. Jordan Seaton, though, was obviously one of the biggest recruiting stories of the whole cycle. He was a 5-star offensive tackle. Colorado was in on him. Colorado was kind of viewed as, oh, they have a legit chance. And then he announces, I think it was his top 6 or 7, whatever the number was. Doesn't matter. Colorado wasn't this number 6 or 7 school on there. They weren't included at all. So it was like Ohio State, Maryland, Tennessee, Bama, Florida, Georgia. We'll just throw in. I don't know if Georgia was the other one, but Colorado was not on the list. And then Maryland was, of course. Wink, wink. Then he goes and commits to Colorado on undisputed. And so it's like, oh, he did it. Coach Prime did it again. And then early signing day comes, and Jordan Seaton is not one of the signees. He reportedly was flirting with Maryland. There was a lot of interest in his home program. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, did Colorado just lose Jordan Seaton to Maryland? And they ended up getting him. But one of the interesting things that he talked about, because he went on this live stream, or I don't know what you would call it, like a live chat thing on Twitter with Hayes Fawcett, was probably 20, 30 minutes. It was, I think it was a great like recruiting ploy or exposure ploy. It was a waste of time to listen to be honest. There was really no questions answered in that thing. I remember I had multiple people text me and go, what is the point of this? Like, he's just rambling. And I think it was just to kind of create the anticipation. It reminded me of Travis Hunter's get me to 100,000 subscribers and I'll announce my decision. And then he didn't announce it right away. It reminded me something like that, because honestly, it was, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it was pretty much a waste of time. Like, there was no, I didn't learn a single thing from that. I don't think anybody in the college football world learned a certain thing about what Jordan Seaton said that day. But one thing that we did learn, he commits to Colorado, and he's competing at the Under Armour All-American game this past weekend. And we learned how people are negatively recruiting Colorado, which is borderline racist and stereotypical. It's probably not borderline. It probably is racist and stereotypical. But people have moved on from the Coach Prime is not going to be here. And apparently they are more focused on the social media aspect. So this is what Jordan Seaton said. One coach from a program he didn't name said, this was the most famous one I got. It was like, what do you want to be, a rapper or something? And then he said, I'm like, hey. And he was like, I get what you're saying, but bro, there was a lot of negative recruiting at Coach Prime. I feel like some people don't understand that he's only been there for what? Has it been a year? It's been a year. The turnaround the program is from 1-11 to 4-8. See that is cool. And so obviously there's always negative recruiting. There really is. For Florida this next year, for Billy Napier, it's going to be, yeah, he's going to get fired. Why would you want to go there? For, I don't know, for Nick Saban, it's he's going to retire soon. For Dabo Swinney, it's he's going to leave soon. For Coach Prime, it was he's going to leave. And now it's this rapper thing. It's, oh, do you want to be a rapper? Or you want to be a social media star? One, I think it's disappointing to kind of hear that, like, obviously it's a program like Colorado who has Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, Offset, The Rock, and all these like social media, or not social media, all these icons, these black icons. And it's like, oh, do you want to be a rapper? Or like, oh, it's like, why does it have to go away from football? I don't know. I think it's just these coaches look for an avenue, and they're going to hit that avenue really hard and be like, you don't want to go there. They don't care about football. They care more about dropping albums or something, which Colorado is very focused on football. I think at one point you can make the argument, like when Dan Lanning said they were fighting for clicks or whatever, as mad as people got about it, Colorado was in fact very much focused on clicks. The players were, because Coach Prime talked about it after the Stanford loss, that all the love that they were getting on social media was about to change. And you knew that hurt the players, because you knew they were enjoying the social media love. But this part, kind of disgusting, and not really a need. I think that's just the dirty part of college football. I'm not saying it doesn't happen everywhere. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to anyone. But I am saying that it doesn't need to happen. If your best recruiting pitch is why someone else is bad, you probably aren't in the conversation for that recruit. Let's just put it that way. If you have to bring down someone else if you have to tear down someone else to build yourself up, probably don't deserve to be in that conversation anyway. You're probably not going to get the recruit. Let's just put that there. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I think negative recruiting for Coach Prime will continue to be stuff like that. It will continue to be like he's leaving, but it's a part of the game, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people just have to kind of stoop low because they know that they're not going to hit on these high ranking recruits all the time. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's no better time to get on the action with FanDuel than right now, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use. There's so many different ways you can use it. Same game parlays, live game same parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. I had to mute myself to cough real there. Thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. But I want to talk about Mr. Jordan Seaton because obviously he played in the Under Armour All-American game, like I said. And one of the things that I wanted to see was how he faced up against the best talent in the country. And might I add, he did well. He had a nice little catch on a 2-point conversion, which was called back for, they called it, I don't even remember what they called. They called intentional grounding or something. I think the refs meant to call it an eligible receiver downfield or a poor alignment, but I don't know what the call was there. But either way, Jordan Seaton was locking it down. I think you could see his physicality. You could see his strength. I think you could see his overall just tenacity, which is going to translate right away. He's probably going to play left tackle right away for Colorado. One of the things that's cool about the Under Armour game is all of the top offense linemen in high school really play left tackle or right tackle. And so for Jordan Seaton to be slotted at that left tackle spot shows just how good of a week he had. The product as a whole, I want to say that was probably the worst Under Armour game I've seen in quite some time. Team Fire. So Jordan Seaton was on Team Ice, and Team Fire was who they were playing for. Team Fire had probably the worst quarterback display. They threw 2 pick sixes in like the first half. They were down 36-3 at halftime or something ridiculous. And it was just, they had no offense line. Their receivers were lost. It was just a poor game performance. Now, obviously, it's a scrimmage. It's a glorified scrimmage. It's an all-star game. Usually efforts are down in that. The kids have only been playing together for like a week or so. But Jordan Seaton looked good. And so if you're a Colorado fan, you see that performance, you have to be excited about what he brings to the offense line. They have that hashtag DT2, don't touch 2, little movement going. And I'm not saying that they won't give up sacks because it's a part of the game, but this unit is going to be looking a lot better than it was this past year. And like I said, this past year, if they were average, like an average offense line, they win some games. They win a lot more games than 4. Maybe won 7, maybe won 8. But the offense line was just horrendous, terrible. And I think Jordan Seaton, I think he's an automatic plug and play. I think he's an automatic solution. And I think there's a lot of things to be excited about if you're a Colorado fan. If you're a Buffs fan, you look at that performance in the Under Armour All-American game and you go, that guy's going to be protecting Jordan Sanders. That guy's going to be someone we build the offense line around for years to come. So overall, great showing from Jordan. It sucks his catch got called back, but if they need to kind of throw it out to him on the screen, he's got good hands. He's really slow, let me tell you, but good hands, strong kid. Have to be excited about it. The game itself, horrible watch, but watching out for Jordan Seaton, he did quite well, and Buffs fans should be thrilled. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs and making me your first listen of the day. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the latest episode of the Coach Prime Doc and what we learned from the last episode, I think it is. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow. I want to get to 5,000 subs by spring ball. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one.